Breaking news coming in regarding a crash that's taken place at the Kathmandu International Airport. This was during a takeoff of a Saurya airline flight which had 19 people on board. So far what we know is 5 bodies have been recovered from the crash site. There were 19 people on board, including the technical staff as well as the crew of the airlines. This flight was to take off for Pokhara, but during takeoff is when this crash that took place. This was an accident that's happened right at the Tribhuvan International Airport in Kathmandu. A flight that was to take off for Pokhara but crashed with 19 people on board that Saurya airline flight. We have Vishnu joining us to get us more on this. Vishnu, we are seeing visuals on our screen of smoke billowing from this flight, and of course it's very difficult as far as rescue operations are concerned, given the fact that the fire continues to rage on, smoke continues to come out of the plane, and at the same time the rescue teams are trying to recover people on board that flight, and so far 5 bodies have been recovered.
Right. So this is a CRJ-200 aircraft. It is the Saurya aircraft. This is one of the local airlines in Kathmandu. The incident took place shortly after 11 a.m. in the morning. The aircraft crashed while taking off from Tribhuvan International Airport in Kathmandu. It was on a flight to Pokhara. Several bodies are now being recovered. The total number of people, as you mentioned, on board is 19. I should mention a couple of points about Nepal, its air safety record, and also Tribhuvan International Airport. Firstly, Tribhuvan International Airport is a tabletop type airport. In other words, it is somewhat elevated compared to the terrain around. It is surrounded by valleys on all sides. It has historically seen several crashes which have taken place. And as far as air travel in Nepal itself is concerned, there have been numerous crashes which have taken place over the last couple of years. Just in terms of recent crashes, in 2023, on the 15th of January, 72 people were killed in Pokhara on a Yeti aircraft. 22 people lost their lives in May 2022 on a Tara Air flight. 2017, there was a crash in Lukla. There were 23 people who died in 2016 in another Tara Air crash. This was Saurya Air, of course. And these were just fixed-wing aircraft. But in terms of helicopter accidents, the accident rate is, no better. Last year, in July last year, 6 people were killed in a crash in Solukhumbu. 7 people were killed in 2019, and I can go on and on with the list. And these are just Nepalese air operators. There have been foreign airlines as well, which have crashed over here. So Nepal has among the worst air safety records anywhere, and it's very unfortunate what has taken place over here. Obviously, we won't get into any speculation, but all we do know at this stage is that the CRJ-200, which is a jet aircraft, it's got 2 engines in the back. It's the Canada Regional Jet as a CRJ family of aircraft is extremely reliable. It's a workhorse around the world. This aircraft evidently didn't gain height. It skidded off the runway on takeoff. It fell down an embankment. It caught fire, and those are the images that you can see.
Right, Vishnu, given the fact that it perhaps was a short distance flight, was this a small plane?
Sorry, was this a?
I said, given that perhaps was a short distance flight, was it a small plane that was carrying 19 people on board?
Yeah, that's right. The CRJ-200 is a small aircraft. I don't, off the top of my head, recall the number of passengers it could carry, but I think it's less than 50 seats. It is a jet aircraft, unlike many other aircraft operated in Nepal in those terrains. But it is a short flight, a flight of less than an hour. And unfortunately, this incident has taken place. It skidded off the runway, was unable to gain altitude. It went down the embankment, and it's in flames. And as you mentioned, a couple of bodies have been recovered. But this is the latest in a string of air crashes involving both fixed-wing aircraft, such as this one, and helicopters in the country of Nepal.
Right, Vishnu, what we're hearing is that this was an airline's domestic carrier which had only a couple of planes, and all of them with a capacity of just 50 passengers per plane. We have Ghazali joining us. Ghazali, what's the latest that you're hearing? From what we know so far is 5 bodies have been recovered.
People were on board, as Vishnu just mentioned, and around 5 bodies have been recovered. The firefighters have reached the airport crash site. The plane just took off. The crash happened at around 11 a.m. midair. The exact reason or the fault why this incident happened or why the plane crashed midair has not been ascertained yet. Once the rescue operation will get over, once all the bodies will be retrieved, and then the technical team will find out the exact reason of the crash there.
Right, so of course we don't know what really caused this accident, what caused this crash as far as the airlines is concerned. Ghazali, from what we are hearing from reports coming in at the moment is that there weren't too many flights of this particular airline. This was just a domestic carrier.
Yeah, this was Surya Airlines, which was going from Kathmandu to Pokhara. Pokhara is a tourist destination, and thankfully there were not many passengers in the plane. There was crew members as well as the technical staff, which was going from Kathmandu to Pokhara. And immediately after taking off, the initial preliminary reports or the eyewitnesses accounts suggest that perhaps the plane skidded off the runway, and that is when it took off. It caught fire, and within minutes of catching fire, the plane crashed midair. Why this plane was going towards Pokhara, what was the exact reason, and why it crashed midair, why it caught the fire, the reasons are not known. The priority right now is to retrieve the bodies of all those 19 who were on board,
right.
and also the safety of those, and perhaps the reason to know whether there are any survivors or all on board are dead in this crash is yet to be shared by the official spokesperson of the Kathmandu.
Right, Ghazali, we also have with us Captain S.S. Panesar, aviation and flight safety expert, joining us on the phone line. You know, from visuals on our screen, we're seeing this deadly crash that's taken place in Kathmandu, a flight that was bound for Pokhara. What is the reason that we're seeing so many crashes, especially around the Kathmandu airport, or flights that are taking off from Kathmandu? We will just have him back with us. We have Prerna Thakur, the manager of the airport in Kathmandu, joining us. Sir, thank you so much for speaking to us here on NDTV. What information do you have for us regarding what really caused this crash, and what about the people on board? So we have Captain S.S. Panesar, aviation and flight safety expert, joining us. Sir, thank you for speaking to us. You know, what is the reason that we are seeing so many crashes being reported out of Nepal in the last 10 to 15 years, especially in regard to Kathmandu as an airport? You know, it really does bring to mind what happened last year on the 15th of January when 72 lives were lost, you know, in that very area.
And I do not know whether it's any technical fault with the engine. That, of course, the investigation will come out. But in the past, if you see the history of crashes in Nepal, there are many crashes. And according to my opinion, which we have seen, most of the crashes are the overconfidence. The pilots have to study the weather reports very carefully. Because the hilly region, the winds updraft and downdrafts are very fast, and they change very fast. You're going towards the hill, there may be a downdraft of hill, and they're very strong when they push the aircraft down. You might even full power on the engine, yet the aircraft cannot climb. So the pilots have to take caution by watching the meteorological charts and seeing the weather position, how the winds are flown over the area. Then only they can conduct a safe flight. Of course, the investigation will tell if there was any technical fault with the engines or the aircraft, which I don't know. Then the digital flight data recorder will come out. It's a very sad thing. The pilots have to take
technical staff was on board that airlines, which perhaps had the capacity of only 50 people. 19 people were on board, including the crew of the airlines. This is a very small flight that was taking off for Pokhara. Pokhara is the area where 72 people died last year in that crash that took place on the 15th of January. The 72 people included children as well that lost their lives in that incident. The deadliest crash that you know, reported out of Nepal in the last 30 years or so. Sir, take us through what's you know, what's really causing these crashes when it comes to Nepal, as far as the safety and the precautions that you know, one needs to take during you know, say weather which is not very conducive.
Yes, the pilots have to take a very, very careful observation of the flights. They have to be sure of the weather in the valley, because in the valley, the weather changes very fast.
Right. Right, of course, sir. So, of course, we are seeing visuals on our screen of smoke and fire coming out of that plane. 19 people were on board that plane. So far, from what we are hearing, is 5 bodies have been recovered, 5 lives have been lost due to that crash. It had technical staff as well as the airline crew on board that flight. There were 19 people on that very small flight which was taking off from the Kathmandu airport. That flight was supposed to reach Pokhara, a very short distance flight, but it could, while takeoff, it crashed. And it's very close to the Tribhuvan International Airport of Kathmandu, where we can see visuals of that plane crash in Kathmandu. So we have Ghazali with us. Ghazali, this plane crash that we are seeing, especially particularly when it comes to Nepal, why are we seeing so many crashes? And of course, this is the season, you know, it's the rainy season. Weather plays a very crucial role.
Yes, on an average, every year Nepal reports one plane crash, and now the reason being perhaps due to the poor infrastructure. But we can't speculate the exact reason, but certainly for the fact we know that every few months, on an average in a year, a plane crash is reported in Nepal. And there are many incidents, as Vishnu was also reporting, that how every year we get to hear about plane crash and passengers losing their life in Nepal after taking off, or the flights developing technical snags leading to the crash. But in this particular incident, the latest update is that the pilot has been recovered and he has been sent to the hospital. His medical condition is not known, neither the medical condition of other on-board passengers or say the crew members as well as the technical staff is not known. 5 bodies have been recovered. The fate of the rest of the 14 is not known yet. The only good information or good news coming out of that sad plane crash news is that the pilot's body has been recovered and he has been sent to the hospital for treatment, but his medical condition is not known yet.
Right. Of course, we don't know the reason behind this crash that's taken place, a crash at the Tribhuvan International Airport while this flight, Saurya Airlines aircraft that was trying to take off for Pokhara, very short distance flight, like Vishnu was mentioning, that it would barely take not even an hour to reach Pokhara from Kathmandu. The crash occurred while the flight was taking off for Pokhara from the international airport in Kathmandu. The flight only had technical staff of the airlines. There were no passengers on board, and firefighters and security personnel are currently trying to control the situation. They're trying to douse the fire while they're trying to rescue people on board. And as we really don't know how many survivors are there on the flight, what we do know so far is that there were 19 people on board that flight, of which 5 bodies have so far been recovered. And in the last 10 to 15 years, Nepal has witnessed at least 12 fatal plane crashes. And of course, it does bring to mind that fatal crash, the deadliest in the last 30 years, is what took place on the 15th of January last year, in which a Yeti Airlines flight crashed, which resulted in the death of 72 people, including children. Well, 72 lives were lost in that plane crash that took place. This is coming on the heels of just that crash that took place last year in January. And here visuals on your screen of a flight that was taking off for Pokhara from Kathmandu crashed just off the runway while it was trying to take off. So this is very close to the international airport in Kathmandu, the Tribhuvan International Airport. So visuals on your screen of that flight where smoke and fire continues to rage on. Ghazali, what have they managed to control the fire to some extent, because they are trying to drag bodies out of that plane? So there must be a certain part that they might, they have managed to access.
Yeah, as of now, the reports coming in confirm that the firefighter team has controlled the fire. The fire has been put off. Now the only challenge is to retrieve the body, for which the other team, along with the rescue operation, which are engaged in the rescue operation, are trying to get the bodies out from that crash site. So the fire has been controlled, the fire has been put off by the firefighters, and now the only challenge is to get the bodies out. The pilot has been sent to the hospital. He has been admitted in the hospital. That's one confirmed news coming in from from the crash site in Kathmandu. The pilot is perhaps alive, but his medical condition has not been shared by the official sources from the Kathmandu International Airport. Right now, what we are picking up is that in the recent years, as you were asking, that why Nepal has seen so many air crashes, flight crashes there, their air industry has boomed in recent years, carrying goods and people between hard-to-reach areas as well as foreign trekkers and climbers. But perhaps the poor safety measures is one of the reasons why we have seen these flight crashes or even flight catching fire midway after taking off, as in this particular case. So this could be one particular reason that why there are frequent flight crashes there in Nepal, perhaps due to the poor safety measures. But in this particular case, as to why this incident has happened, why did it catch fire while taking off, will be known after the entire rescue operation gets over and the technical team or the the officials of the Kathmandu International Airport share the details of the reason behind this midway explosion, or say the flight catching fire after taking off in the air.
At least 5 people have died in that crash that's taken place on board that Saurya Airlines in Kathmandu. A flight that was taking off for Pokhara has crashed while taking off. So visuals on your screen of that flight, that crash very, very close to the runway. So this is very close to the Tribhuvan International Airport in Kathmandu. And from what Ghazali is telling us is that they managed to douse the fire. Rescue operations are on in order to retrieve those on board that flight, which included the technical staff and the pilot, the crew of the airlines. It's a very small airlines, which perhaps had a capacity of only 50 people. Not many flights as far as this fleet is concerned. They probably had just a couple of flights, a couple of aircrafts, and this was a domestic carrier that was meant to take its staff to Pokhara. But this crash that took place at about 11 o'clock this morning at the Kathmandu International Airport. We have Ghazali with us. Ghazali, is it the terrain? Is it the weather? Is it a combined, is it a combination of the two that is the reason? Or is it that they have too many, short distance flights, and which is why probably they're small planes which are perhaps unsafe?
See, we can't speculate about the reason as to what could be the reason, but going by the track record of the flight crashes there or flight accidents, air accidents there in Nepal, we can certainly say that it has to do something with the safety measures, because in the previous incidents, on an average, records suggest that every year Nepal reports one flight incident or say an accident at the airport concerning the airways or the flights. So this could be one possible reason. And European Union, Europe has also banned certain Nepalese carriers or air carriers to move into their country. So this has certainly to do with the safety measures. We can't say the infrastructure is not well, because Nepal has also managed to be to penetrating the air markets and getting and reaching to some far-flung areas, carrying cargo as well as passengers. So when it comes to the quality of the aircraft or say the flight safety, that is something which looks not up to the standard, leading to such accidents. Yet again mentioning that perhaps this particular incident or accident, the reason is not known yet, that why did it catch fire and when did it catch fire, immediately after taking off or perhaps with the impact. When it was taking off, it had already caught fire and was noticed only when it went mid-air. So the exact reason is not known yet. What we know so far is that the pilot has been sent to the hospital, 5 dead bodies have been recovered. Pilot's medical condition is not known. Neither the rest of the 14 crew members or the passengers on board are not known yet. What we also know is that out of the 19, these were the technical staff as well as a crew member who were going from Kathmandu to Pokhara. Pokhara is a tourist town, as we are being told from the local sources there, and it was a short distance flight, as Vishnu also mentioned. But as of now, the good news is that the fire has been controlled, but there are no updates on the condition of the rest of the 14 on-board crew members as well as the technical staff.
Right, so the weather and the terrain is, one of the reasons that we're seeing so many tragedies being reported out of Nepal. It also, Ghazali, take us through the kind of aircrafts that are used. They could be very small planes, perhaps doing many rounds, considering the fact that this airlines did not have too many aircrafts.
Yes, this was a short distance. Say the flight was to cover a very short distance of less than an hour from Kathmandu to Pokhara, and perhaps these are the small flights or small capacity, sitting capacity flights which are operating from the Kathmandu International Airport. Beyond that, what could be the reason, or whether it is it was a small distance flight and that is why a short duration flight, that why it caught fire, can't be said as of now. No speculations as of now, but the airport safety, or say the flight safety, is certainly one thing which is concerning in Nepal, going by its track record of accidents every year. And Vishnu also mentioned a number of accidents which have been reported in the last 12 months from Nepal, and some of them had a similar nature of occurrence, or the occurrence or the reason of the accident were of similar nature, that flights was carrying fire mid-air, or while taking off, or while landing at the airport. So as far as the quality is concerned, the Nepal's aircrafts have been sort of carrying passengers and cargo as well to far-flung areas in the world. So it certainly has to do with the flight safety and the safety measures at the airport, which perhaps could have led to this accident.
Right, high terrains are difficult, of course, and to top that, of course, also when it comes to the facilities and the equipment, you know, when we talk about the planes in Nepal, considering they're not very new, Ghazali, as from what reports are suggesting, and which is why we've seen an increase in the plane crashes that are being reported. And let's just get you an update here that we, you know, from what is being reported is at least 68 plane crashes have been reported since 1955. 44 of those crashes have been deadly, and this does not include this plane crash that has taken place in Kathmandu. It has taken place just very close to the runway at the international airport. There you can see visuals of that plane just about taking off and then crashing very, very close to the runway. We have visuals coming, you know, playing out on our screens right now of that flight just about taking off, just a few meters, you know, hadn't really taken off properly, and then crashes just very, very close to the runway.
Yeah, so it's too early to say what exactly went wrong over there. I can tell you that the aircraft was a CRJ-200 aircraft. This is a Canada regional jet aircraft. It's a family of aircraft used around the world. It's a 50-seater aircraft. It's a twin-engine jet aircraft. It was on a flight between Tribhuvan International Airport in Kathmandu and Pokhara. As we've been discussing earlier on, this airport and indeed Nepal has an appalling safety record when it comes to flight safety. Just a cursory look at their air safety record indicates a number of crashes virtually every year, whether it's helicopters or fixed-wing aircraft like this across the country. However, at this juncture, it's, you know, there are too many factors to actually get into to look into what may have caused that crash. Nepal, I should suggest, has a fairly quick system of investigating its own air accidents, and they do quite transparently come out with these air safety reports which talk about what may have resulted in a crash. In this particular case, we do not know. As you mentioned, the aircraft appears to have climbed just a little bit before it plummeted down. I can tell you that this particular airport is a tabletop airport. Landing on this airport is difficult. This, of course, was a different situation. It was taking off. For whatever the reasons were, perhaps the aircraft didn't generate enough thrust on its engines. Perhaps the flap settings were wrong. Perhaps there was a pilot error. Perhaps there was a mechanical error. The digital flight data recorder, which this aircraft is equipped with, and given the fact that the wreckage is so close to the periphery of the runway, that should be recovered. And the last moments of the crash, not just the audio of the pilots, but also the data from the aircraft itself and various systems on board should be available to investigators, hopefully, to sort of figure out what went wrong.
Vishnu, given the terrain and the unpredictable weather, especially during the monsoon season, are there just some specific kind of planes that are allowed in this region?
Airport wide-body, commercial aircraft, including Airbus A330s, are used. I believe 777 flights have also taken place. So it's not really about the airport in this particular case. It is about the circumstances of the crash, which we don't really know anything about. This was on its takeoff run. The CRJ is it's an excellent aircraft around the world. It's used very, very commonly. But what exactly happened, I realize everybody wants to know, but frankly, at this stage, it could take days, weeks, perhaps even months for safety experts to come to some sort of conclusion. But yes, in other parts of Nepal, there are a lot of destinations served only by helicopter. There are other destinations where small propeller-driven turboprop aircraft operate. We've seen crashes of different types of aircraft in Nepal for all sorts of reasons. Mechanical error, pilot error on several occasions, including a horrific one last year in which 70-plus people lost their lives when a pilot accidentally shut down, or effectively shut down, the engine with the aircraft stalling and then crashing. On a flight to Pokhara, in fact, this aircraft was on its way to Pokhara today.
Vishnu, is this one of the planes that needs a shorter takeoff and landing airfield?
It has a very robust short takeoff and landing performance. But in this particular case, Tribhuvan International Airport has a long runway, which, as I mentioned, can cater for wide-body commercial aircraft, including the Airbus A330. That is in use by Royal Nepal Airlines as well. So it's not the length of the runway in this case which would be a factor. It would be other reasons, including, as I mentioned, a variety of reasons which investigators would be looking at. Let me repeat some of those reasons. Possibly a pilot error, mechanical defect, an engine defect, or some strange weather phenomena which prevented the aircraft from actually gaining altitude. But that seems quite unlikely because it's not as if the CRJ-200 is an underpowered aircraft. Not at all.
Right. Vishnu, they're explaining to us that the kind of airlines this was, the kind of aircraft this was that has crashed at the international airport just minutes after it was trying to take off. So it was a very, it was extremely soon after takeoff when 19 people on board that flight, a flight that has crashed at the international airport of Kathmandu, a flight that was to take off for Pokhara. We have Ghazali with us. Ghazali, take us through, it is the monsoon season. What were the weather conditions like? Any report on visibility levels? Also, in regard to this plane, if you could explain to us, and also definitely also any update as far as those on board are concerned. We do know that 5 people so far have lost their lives.
Yeah, as far as the status of those who were on board, what we can pick up right now is that 18 bodies have been recovered. Out of the 19 were on board. The pilot has been rushed to the hospital. He is admitted there. His medical condition is not known. So we can confirm, as per the local reports, we can confirm that out of those 19 who were on board, the body of 18 people have been recovered. The fire has been put off there by the firefighting team. And also the rescue operation is still going on at the site right now. What we know that what could be the exact reason? The exact reason is not known yet. Once this part of the rescue operation gets over, that all the bodies are recovered, like one more body has to be recovered until the Tribhuvan International Airport spokesperson confirms that everybody on board has not survived, or none of them have survived in the crash, as well as the reason of that why did the flight catch fire. And perhaps the initial reports, or say what the eyewitness team or the technical team at the airport suggests, that perhaps due to the impact of taking off, the plane caught fire, which was only visible or noticed once it was mid-air, and it crashed minutes after taking off from the Kathmandu International Airport for Pokhara. And we don't know yet that the weather condition, as per the official spokesperson and as per the local reports, was quite normal. So the exact reason is still not known, that what would be the reason behind this accident. Once the pilot also recovers from his injury, because his medical condition is also not known, but we are being told that he has been rushed to the hospital for now, and his body was recovered minutes after the firefighting team and the rescue team reached the airport.
Right. Ghazali, from what is being reported is most of these crashes that have been reported from Nepal have often been due to poor visibility, and that is most often when the aircraft have hit a mountain. But in this case, this was just at the time of takeoff. Visibility perhaps was not an issue, given the fact that it was while they were trying to take off, but they have crash landed right there off the runway itself.
See, barring this particular incident, what the track record suggests is that the airlines over there in Nepal has been plagued by poor safety due to insufficient training and maintenance. So flight safety is certainly an issue, but whether that was the reason why this accident took place, we can't speculate on that until the official reason is shared by the Tribhuvan International Airport officials, that what was the possible reason there. As far as the flight safety and the quality is concerned, we know that the European Union has banned the Nepal carriers moving into their country. So certainly flight safety or the safety standard is one issue which Nepal has been struggling with for the last couple of years. And on an average, if you see the track record of the air crashes or the incidents of air crashes which has taken place in Nepal, it's on an average one air crash or the plane crash or the plane accident, let's say on a broader term, has been reported from Nepal every year. So perhaps in this particular incident, whether the weather was an issue, whether the visibility was an issue, or perhaps it was the impact of taking off, which also sort of suggests or hints towards the quality of the aircraft, could be one reason. But once the bodies are recovered and once we hear it from the official sources of the reason behind this accident, then only we can confirm that what was the reason for this particular accident.
Ghazali, traveling by road is not even considered a very safe option when it comes to Nepal. Many accidents, many deadly accidents have been reported as well. So, especially when it comes to the tourist season for tourists, how does one really travel to Nepal, considering the fact that the local planes are not very safe, and even traveling by road is not very safe?
No, this is a big concern for passengers, not just in Nepal, but for the tourists who come to Nepal from other countries. And it is widely known that for the short distance tourist spots, people generally travel by air from Kathmandu to the nearby spots because it is less time consuming as usual. But it also sort of compromises the safety if such incidents are reported frequently from Nepal. And this is not an isolated incident. We can also quote that in January last year, a tragic incident had taken place when the Airline's flight crashed near the central city of Pokhara, the same Pokhara where this flight was bound to reach. And all 72 people on board, including passengers and crew members, had lost their lives in the incident. The aircraft in that particular accident plummeted into a steep gorge, breaking into pieces and bursting into flames as it approached Pokhara. So whether that was also due to the flight safety norms, we know that perhaps that is exactly why the European Union has banned all the Nepalese carriers getting into their country. So certainly airport safety or say the flight safety standards are not up to the mark. That is why Nepal is struggling with these flight accidents or mid-air crashes or the fire catching incidents or the plane catching fire after taking off or after landing is why the Nepal's carriers are not considered safe in the European Union. And this one particular incident will only give impetus to the logic that traveling over there could not be very, very safe.
Right, Ghazali, you did mention of that plane crash that took place on that Yeti Airlines last year in January when 72 people lost their lives, including 2 infants. But what the report really suggested by the government-appointed investigators at the time was that it was probably the result of its pilots mistakenly cutting off the power. This is what could have caused that fatal crash in which 72 people died. So, one doesn't really know what is really causing, besides the weather and the terrain. Also, like you mentioned, the flight safety in terms of these small aircrafts that are operating in Nepal to cover very short distance, and of course something that needs to be looked into because this is going to of course have an impact on tourism as well.
Aviation watchers not just blame the quality of the aircrafts there, but they also suggest that perhaps not only just poor safety due to insufficient training could also be one of the reasons. As you mentioned, the Yeti Airlines crash which took place last year in January, where you say that perhaps the pilot turned off the park buttons by mistake, is also attributed to the insufficient training to the pilots there, and poor safety standards, insufficient training. Though the what we are picking up is that Nepal's air industry has kind of boomed in the last couple of years with carrying cargo and passengers to those areas, far-flung areas, of which those areas were hard to reach. But still, this is one area of concern for the Nepal's air industry when it comes to frequent accidents being reported from the country in the last 1.5 years.
Right, so of course we are seeing, like you mentioned, so many tragic incidents that are being reported from Nepal in the last since 1955. There have been 44 deadly plane crashes, and that does not include this particular plane crash in which 18 bodies have been recovered so far. So the tragedy that's taken place at the Kathmandu airport where 18 people have lost their lives is the pilot who has been rushed to the hospital. We do not have an update as far as his condition is concerned. Of course, we will get you the very latest in regard to his health update. Ghazali, take us through any update on the people who were on board that flight.
See, the latest what we are picking up right now is that perhaps the Tribhuvan International Airport has been closed till 1 p.m. the Nepal time. 18 bodies have been recovered from the crash site as of now. They're all dead. 19 were on board. Besides the pilot who has been rushed to the hospital, his medical condition is not known yet, the status of his medical condition, but perhaps he was alive, that's why he was rushed to the hospital. So once that medical update comes in, as of now we can only say that 18 people have died in this crash. The bodies are being recovered. All the 18 bodies have been recovered, but as per the initial information, there were 19 people on board, including the technical staff and the crew members. Out of those 19, 18 bodies have been recovered. The pilot has been rushed to the hospital for his medical condition, and the international airport, or the Tribhuvan International Airport in Kathmandu, has been closed till 1 p.m. local time. So for the rescue operation to continue, because the fire has been put under control by the firefighters, and that didn't take very much time, but the only time taking process was to extract the bodies or retrieve the bodies from the crash site. So we will only get to know more from the local authorities, from the international airport officials there in Kathmandu, about the status of the pilot, as well as what could be the possible reason behind this crash.
Right, whether the terrain, whether it is the condition of the plane, given the fact that it was a very small plane to the capacity of perhaps 50 people. Ghazali, take us through, this airlines, this particular airline, Saurya International Airlines, did not have too many flights that were operating under their name. Perhaps just only a couple of aircrafts is what the airlines had.
Yes, this particular airlines doesn't have many aircrafts, or say it doesn't have those long duration or long distance aircrafts operating under its name. So this airlines perhaps operates only short duration flights with less seating capacity, as Vishnu was also mentioning, because this particular flight was also just leaving from Kathmandu to Pokhara, which takes less than an hour for the entire duration of the journey. So this particular airlines doesn't operate too many flights on that route, or perhaps in Kathmandu in Nepal. That is what we have gathered so far, and further updates will come once the International Airlines spokesperson, who have been updating about the condition of the pilot, about the rescue and relief operation there, once they confirm about the status of those people who have been who were on board. Like 18 bodies have been recovered out of the 19 who were on board. So furthermore, the exact reason is what everybody is awaiting to know, that what was the reason for the fire, because initial reports suggest that it's the impact of taking off. Perhaps that the reason for the fire could be the impact for the flight to take off.
Right, Ghazali, we also have Disha Bakshi with us, joining us. Disha, we're seeing, many such plane crashes that are being reported from Nepal. In the last 10-15 years only, 12 fatal plane crashes have been reported, excluding this very one. When we talk about from 1955, 44 deadly plane crashes have been reported out of Nepal.
Right. Nepal has a reputation and a history of various really deadly plane crashes. In fact, it is considered one of the most countries with one of the history of deadly plane crashes. In fact, there have been over 700 plane crash deaths in the last 30 years, and Nepal is in fact ranked 12th out of 207 nations, a very high rank in terms of the number of fatalities that they have in plane crashes. As you mentioned, there have been over, as I mentioned earlier, there have been over 700 plane crash deaths in the last 30 years, and this plane crash, in fact, is quite deadly, given the fact that out of 19 people on board, 18 bodies have so far been recovered, and the airport, the Tribhuvan International Airport, is currently closed till 1 p.m. Nepal time. So, as my colleague Ghazali mentioned, the details of the cause of the the plane crash is yet to be determined. But it is in fact quite a deadly plane crash, and as I mentioned earlier, Nepal has a reputation of being one of the most dangerous places to fly in the world due to its challenging topography and the weather patterns over Nepal. In fact, the European Union has
right, Disha,
carriers from its airspace.
we are seeing an increase in these plane crashes that are being reported out of Nepal. A very tragic plane crash that has taken place this morning at about 11 o'clock at the Kathmandu airport, where 18 lives have been lost. There were 19 people on board. The only person who has survived so far is the pilot, who has been rushed to the hospital. 18 bodies have been recovered as this flight was taking off for Pokhara but crashed very close to the runway at the international airport in Kathmandu. We'll get you the very latest on this. For now, we're slipping into a very short break.